There have been two huge metas in 2025, airdrops and more recently, ICOs. Now, ICOs were a huge thing back in 2017 and they've really come back very, very strong after the success of a few specific ICOs that have already happened in 2025. So in today's video, while we've covered airdrops already on the channel, we haven't really dove into some of the ICOs that are currently available. Today, we're going to be looking at some of the top ICOs, platforms that allow you to get in on ICOs, kind of private access oftentimes. We'll show you how to get into those and then talk about some of the top upcoming ICOs and whether or not you want to contribute to them and be an early participant. All that and more in today's video. If you're new here, my name is Alex, talk about crypto news, crypto passive income. If you enjoy content like that, consider subscribing. You enjoyed this video, smash up the like. Without further ado, let's jump into the video. Now we're going to be really focusing on three specific ICOs in today's video, but I wanted to start off with two very brief things. First, talk about what does October look like, some of the ICOs in general, airdrops, TGEs coming up, and also showcase some of the platforms where you can find a lot of these ICOs. Like the saying goes, give a man a fish, you feed him for a day, teach a man a fish, you feed him for a lifetime. So hopefully you get a couple of fishing techniques out of this video so you can find future airdrops as well. But there is a ton. I mean, look at this. This is just in the month of October. You've got November and you still have December, typically very bullish months for crypto. Why you see a lot of big events happening, token launches also during typically the most bullish seasons of crypto. Some very big ones, 375 AI, you've got Play, Monad, you've got Lab, you've got Recall, you've got Yield Basis, you have Ethereal, you've got Momentum, we're going to be talking about that one, Meteora. You've got a lot of big projects that are launching, token releases, etc., airdrops, a lot of great things. But the reason I talk about and wanted to make a dedicated video is a lot of times airdrop projects also have ICOs, but it's not always the case and vice versa. And we actually did talk about yield basis on the channel a couple of weeks ago, talked about it very early, and I also talked about it on X. And yield basis did extremely well. And the thing is, obviously with airdrops, you're typically contributing your personal time, right? You're taking a couple of hours out of your schedule to participate in a lot of different projects. When it comes to ICOs, you're going to be contributing your hard-earned cash, and that is oftentimes the harder pill to swallow. But if you get into ICOs, especially when they're hot, you can typically do really, really well. For example, follow Axel Bitblaze. He does a lot of great content with airdrops, ICOs, etc. He also got into the yield basis the ICO, deposited 5K and withdrew 20K. So there's no time that anybody would decline putting in $1,000 and getting out $4,000. A 4X on your investment for typically a short period of time is a no-brainer for 99% of people. But let's talk about some of the top tier platforms for ICOs. The number one I would recommend is called Legion. Now, Legion does require KYC, and if you're in the United States, you have to be an accredited investor. So it does leave out some people, but there are plenty of people around the world that don't live in the US and want to participate in some of these airdrops. The one that we're going to be talking about in today's video, a lot of projects are on Legion. Yield basis was on Legion. That's where Axel got a 4X return. Plenty of opportunity, plenty of projects. I'll leave a link to it down below if you do want to go and check it out. Really, really great stuff. The other one is called BiddlePad. And BiddlePad has really gained a lot of traction after some of the more recent launches, including Falcon Finance, Lombard, Sahara AI, and Solaire. That said, when it comes to some of these and a lot of ICOs, depending on which ICO you get into, a lot of people, because they try to withdraw their capital very quickly, the token price, if you have an ICO in an airdrop, not only do you have selling pressure from people who contribute capital to ICO, you also have selling pressure from the airdrop. And that's what I think happened with Falcon Finance. We'll look at the chart in just a second. But if you sold when it listed, you did extremely well for yourself. The other one that has been growing exponentially has been MegaETH. especially after they had Umbra, a privacy project on Solana that did 220x oversubscribed. We talked about it on the channel as well. They have a project that they're raising currently for called Avichi. We're going to talk about that one in today's video. The other one that's kind of been a hit or miss sometimes depending on the projects that get on there is CoinList. So sometimes always good to check in on CoinList, see what comes to the platform. But we've started to see other ICO platforms do really, really well. Now, the one that I want to highlight in today's video is called Echo. Now, Echo is almost like a private club. And what I mean by that is there are a lot of different groups, right? You have 75 groups on Echo. And essentially, you can join one of these groups and have access to the projects that they are raising capital for. So you've got a lot of different members in a lot of these. The biggest one that a lot of people have pointed out has been Kobe. Now, Kobe is a very popular and prominent figure on X, and he was one that got people access to Plasma's ICO. And for those that got into the Plasma ICO, did a 20x return, and a little bit higher depending on when you sold the token. Now, it was listed at 5 cents. All-time high was like $1.80. So that would have been like a 36x return for some people. Maybe a little bit more. Maybe my math's a little bit off. But either way, the big thing about this is the fact that there is another ICO that is coming to what we're seeing with Echo. So be mindful of that. We're going to talk about that in today's video. But this is one I highly recommend. Check out Echo. See if there's one of these groups that you want to join. I think Ansem also has one down here. Yeah, so Ansem has one. The only deal here, they don't highlight the deal, so you have to be in part of the group as far as being able to actually participate in some of these. But there are some really, really good projects. For this one, looks like they invested into the likes of what we saw. What was this here? Lab, right? So you kind of have to maybe know your logos to be able to kind of see which ones they've invested into. But either way, a lot of great projects that are early ICO opportunities in here. But the one that we're going to be talking about first is called MegaETH, which, if you can tell by the logo up here, you can see which groups have invested early on into the likes of MegaETH. And there's going to be more coming up. So MegaETH, the first project that we're going to talk about, that is a layer 2 scaling solution on Ethereum that actually has the backing of Vitalik Buterin. So this has been one that has been building for a long time, has been gaining a lot of traction for a long time, but it is a layer 2. And there's a lot of layer 2s out there, which is kind of one of the knockoffs, if you will, that, or one of the negatives, right? Is it's just they're now in a crowded field of layer 2s. It's not necessarily going into, RWA or stablecoins or anything like that. So it kind of goes into a list of a lot of other layer 2 projects out there, but there are some unique aspects to what they do. Their performance, edge, EVM compatibility, low latency, scalability, etc. And they have raised a decent amount of capital thus far. And like I said, they're backed by Vitalik Buterin. And having raised $57 million total by Q1 of 2025. So they are growing. TGE is going to be at the end of by the end of the year. And this is one that a lot of people are very, very bullish on. When it comes to the overall participating in the ICO, there are a couple of places to be able to do that. But primarily, it looks like it is going to be through Echo. So a couple of things to understand this. There, you do have a few days to register. You have 12 days to register. In fact, you can also, if you go to the website here, so you have your registration period. You have 12 days to participate. We anticipate announcing details of the potential crypto asset offering in the near future. You may register here. Now, there are some details as to who can and who can't register. So you can do it directly through here. But you can also go through, Echo platform as well. The biggest thing to understand about this is you have 12 days USDT on mainnet, and the last raise was at a $550 million fully diluted valuation. So you have to realize this is already at $550 million fully diluted valuation. So at the next raise, currently valuing it at a $4 billion fully diluted valuation. So maybe about a 3 to 4x potential on the low side. On the high side, it could be at a little bit higher. Now, mind you, 550 million was at its last fully diluted valuation. Not really exactly sure quite yet what the current valuation is going to be at. So something to keep in mind, Polymarket is currently valuing it at 4 billion. And this individual also talking about the fact that he got into yield basis with 2.5K and made 14K profit. So plenty of opportunities when it comes to ICOs. There's another thread talking about the MegaETH ICO as well. They decided to hold an ICO on Kobe's Sonar platform, founder of ICO XYZ. You can read about this, ICO Meta, some of the details here. If you're in the United States, unfortunately, you have to be an accredited investor. And if you are an accredited investor, you have a 1-year token lockup. So yes, you can get in if you're in the US, but your tokens are locked for a year. Maybe not the thing that you want, especially as we're at a time where crypto is already hot. Who knows where things are going to be a year from now. So something to be mindful of, as that is mandatory. So like I said, you've got 12 days. If you're outside the US, maybe something of interest, considering the fact that the only other project that has done this on Echo recently has been Plasma. And Plasma did extremely well, from 5 cents to $1.80 or whatever it was at its all-time high. So moving on to number 2, and that is Avichi. What we are starting to see is a lot of debit or secured credit cards when it comes to crypto. So oftentimes, if you have stables, you have USDC, USDT, you don't maybe want to off-ramp that to your bank account, right? You want to be able to spend that while holding that within your wallet. And so that's why you're seeing projects like Cast. You see one with Solana called Solaire. So there's a lot of projects coming out, new debit cards, new secured credit cards within the crypto space that allows people to use stables, earn yield on their stables that you already have, like Cast, and then also be able to spend that money. It's a normal Visa card pretty much anywhere Visa is accepted. So Avichi recently launched, and there's about 2.5 days left for their capital raise. It's already over committed, 186%. Obviously not as popular to the degree that you saw with Umbra, but privacy was a huge meta. I think this is starting to slowly gain a lot of traction, with Cast being one of the bigger projects. We've already talked about that in a prior video. But there's a lot of really unique aspects to the likes of Avichi. And if this is something of interest to you, right, you don't want to spend the fees or spend the money, and maybe you don't want to hold that money in your bank. You want to spend that just normally and not have to worry about holding it in a bank account. You can have that within your wallet, spend it, and then also have easy access if you want to send it elsewhere to participate in a DeFi platform, right? So you don't have to worry as much as far as the off-ramp, on-ramp aspect of crypto when it comes to these cards. And that, I think, it not only saves you time, it also saves you fees and money, which is a huge benefit, and why we're starting to see a growth for these. Highly recommend that you check this out. It is launching, like I said, the ownership coin on October 18th. So there's just a little bit more time left before the ICO is over. Now, it's not, like I said, there's a lot of other competitors to what Avichi is doing. I think it's probably one of the small ones. There's a lot of unique aspects to what they do. But ICOs, like I said, sometimes hit, sometimes miss. But what we saw with the last ICO on MetaDAO, it was extremely successful. I think that kind of gives a lot of potential to the likes of Avichi, as they're kind of still in the early trend of the type of cards that allow you to spend your stables without having to off-ramp or on-ramp. So that said, moving on to the last one, which I think is probably the one that is most exciting for a lot of people, with the likes of Momentum. So a lot of details about Momentum. We're not going to deep dive into it in today's video, but Momentum DEX, there's a lot of highlights, considered the Robin Hood of cryptocurrency. Next generation decentralized exchange. It's a DEX and modular DeFi platform on Sui. If you like Sui, you're going to like a product like this. If you don't like Sui, maybe not, right? That it really is contingent on Sui being successful. We saw what recently happened with Sui with the massive price crash. A lot of people didn't like what happened. that you kind of have to pick your poison, right? But in the end, I think there's a lot of momentum to the likes of Momentum. And so when it comes to DEXs, obviously we've talked about perp DEXs being very popular. The aspect of that kind of tying in is a good thing. You also have the liquidity aspect. We've seen the automatic market makers and the liquidity for providing liquidity to some of these vaults be very, very lucrative. A lot of availability for passive income to be generated on the DeFi side. So there are a lot of really unique things that Momentum is doing. They've done very, very well since its beta launch. Over 2.1 million active users, 550 million in TVL, over 18 billion. It's actually closer to around 22 billion in total trading volume. So they've done very, very well. So the total raise is extremely low, which is kind of insane. And you have a very low, at least in my opinion, valuation that they're raising at. So I think there's a lot of potential in something like this. So it is on BiddlePad, fully diluted valuation between 250 million to 350 million. I think is very, very low in comparison of being the top AMM DEX on the likes of Sui. So I highly also recommend that if you love the Sui ecosystem and you want to participate in stuff like this, this is a great platform. There's a lot, very, very clean, very nice to see, a lot of great opportunities, a lot of places to be able to earn APR and earn yield on Sui USDC. It kind of reminds me in a lot of ways of what you see with the project on Base, like Airdrome Finance. It reminds me of many ways of Airdrome as to what you see within kind of their liquidity pools and some of the opportunities that exist out there. So I think there's a lot of opportunity. I think there's a lot of great things that Momentum is doing. There's also, some airdrop criteria, airdrop campaigns on Galaxy. There's a few others out there as well that if you want to contribute and get towards the airdrop aspect, that is capable. But I want to highlight this very briefly. This is by Raishu talking about this as far as, what does Momentum Finance do? How does it possibly compare to what you're going to see with the likes of other projects? So I think as far as the ICO, he sees this as a 5x ICO. Falcon Finance was a 14x. He sees this as a 5x. I actually think this has higher upside potential to compared to Falcon Finance, me personally speaking. But I mean, you can see Falcon Finance was extremely high. It launched at about a 6 billion fully diluted valuation, which would mean that if this does only go to 350 million, that could be closer to a 10x, depending on how it goes, the fully diluted valuation. So one to keep your eye on, maybe to contribute to as well. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on ICOs in general. Are you bullish on ICOs? Do you contribute to ICOs? Are you more interested in airdrops? Let me know down below. If you enjoyed this video, smash up the like. You enjoy content like this, consider subscribing. Until next time, guys, stay invested.